Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Packer Universe podcast, a.k.a. The Pup List. We're a Green Bay Packers fan podcast that brings you topical and relevant Packers news, along with our most humble, subjective opinions. This is episode 355. We're doing the speed limit today. We're recording this live on Wednesday, April 22nd, 2026. Today we'll give our final 2026 draft thoughts and dive into at least two positions of note that we think are important, the CB and the DE positions on the
I call it edge, Tay. Edge.
Whatever. You're so edgy. You're so edgy, Ren. That's my co-host tonight. I'm Tay, and this is...
Ren. What up, Tay? How we doing? We're less than 24 hours away from the 2026 NFL draft in Pittsburgh, but more like less than 48 hours away from the Green Bay Packers participating in round 2 of the NFL draft.
It was like it was on like the Packers Twitter yesterday. It was like, everyone make your plans for Thursday night and not the weekend. And it's like, it's kind of like two things. It's like, okay, you're admitting that you're not going to pick on Thursday, which we don't have a pick on Thursday, but you can always, somehow trade everything you have and get back into the first round, which isn't going to happen. But it's kind of funny that they kind of played into that and said, yeah, make your plans for Thursday night and not the weekend. So that's kind of what it is, Ren. I mean, we're going to be watching the draft, right? Just to kind of see who goes off. But is it strange to you to have like a no day one pick in this current draft format where Thursday night is round 1 and then obviously 2 and 3 on Friday night, but we have none. And last year was this huge thing, right? We went to the draft, we had it in Green Bay, it was awesome, but now it's like, oh, I guess this is kind of like a lull year, right?
Yeah, it is weird. I mean, I think that's part of the reason that you and I and many other Packer fans out in Packer Universe are not super stoked and haven't been perusing, these mock drafts probably nearly as much as they do in a lot of years, like getting kind of really into it, falling in love with guys like, oh, if we can just have this edge rusher, this cornerback, or this wide receiver, this
make it better,
guy fall to us at pick, let's say 27, where we can trade up. Like, oh my God. Like, no, it just takes a little bit of the shine off that. I mean, over the last week, I started recognizing a lot of names you hear, when it comes to the D tackles, the big citrus out in Iowa State. He's one of those guys, Dominique Orange, that guys talk about. So that guy's like becoming part of the ether. Could he be a Packer in the second round? And other D tackles. And you hear about other cornerbacks. Could cornerback Chris Johnson, maybe he's on your list, fall into the mid-second round? And people say unlikely. You start to hear these things and finally start paying attention as it got a lot closer for me, that I start to recognize some of these names. Could they, surprise us all and take Ted Hurst, wide receiver out of Georgia State, Packers-y type guy, bigger body wide receiver, Tay? I know that's kind of, checks your box, kind of wide receiver you'd like. Could the Packers surprise us in round 2 with a guy like that? I don't think so, Tay, but finally some of these names start, getting in your atmosphere, your personal ether, and, you're like, you start getting your juices going a little bit more. But tonight, you and I both had a little bit of homework to do, just to talk about two positions that we each pegged one that we'd like to see addressed in round 2. And there can only be one guy, obviously, Tay, and your position was cornerback. Mine was edge. I'm not saying defensive end. They are edge rushers, Tay, where the Packers are light. But before we do, let's address the man who addressed the Packer universe here on Tuesday. That'd be one Brian Gutekunst, talking about, his draft philosophies, getting asked questions, talking about, where guys like Zach Tom are at, or, what's it going to be like on Thursday night, not having a first round pick, all sorts of fun stuff, as he, I think, sat at the podium for about 22 to 28 minutes, somewhere it was in that range.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But what were a few of your takeaways from Brian, he's always, out there with everything, just telling you everything that's on his mind. What'd you glean from Mr. Goodekunst on Tuesday, Tay?
Honestly, to no one's surprise, not very much. I mean, the dude nailed the general manager speak to a T. They want to know, what's the difference this year with no first round pick? What's your strategy? What are you doing? And of course, it's all the same. No, we're gonna stick to our normal practices. It's like, whatever, dude. Just answer
He
the
did
question.
say it was kind of interesting, like, fun to be there. Kind of like they still kind of went about their normal kind of building of this, but it will be different. Not having a first round pick.
And then he says in the second breath, but we're gonna keep to our schedule, and we're gonna go through the routine as we usually do. It's like, okay.
They have to. I mean, those guys are creatures of habit, and you do want to stay, on point. You never know what can happen. You never know what somebody can offer you. You never know what may come to pass.
I mean, like, if his answer was, yeah, we're gonna be paying attention here, and we're going to try to make a move. Obviously, that shows his hand, so he can't say that. Do we think there's a even 1% chance they're going to move up into the first round? Probably not. It's probably less than that, right? So it's like,
I'd say it's less than 1%.
So it's just like, yeah, of course, Brian, you're going to, be chilling out and just letting the board fall to you. And really the only information you're going to kind of take away from Thursday night is who's left on the board for a second round to figure out if you're going to jump up higher than 52, right? To get further to someone that you want. So that's really the only strategy he's probably going to implement.
I think you hit it right on the head. I think that as he watches this fall out towards the end of the night tomorrow night, yeah, that's what he's kind of looking at. Like, ooh, are there a couple guys, maybe even 2 tree, as they say here in Wisconsin, that he really likes that have not yet been taken, and he's like, ooh, maybe I got to start thinking about what I'm going to do coming into Friday, what I might want to package if I want to move up. I think that is a good strategy, and I would very much guess that is kind of what they're formulating and getting ready to do if again, a guy they, love is falling and they got to go get him.
Love. Wow. Good choice of words, Ren. What is this, 2020 draft?
Well, there is a Jeremiah Love, highly touted running back, but he's going to go real early, likely in the first round, talking top 5, top 10 picks. So, no, I wasn't queuing on anything like that, but there is one Jordan Love, obviously, in the building this week as voluntary workouts also underway this week,
Going back, one of the things I kind of like made me think a little bit, and it was interesting that Brian said was he thinks the rosters right now is pretty full, and then with the draft and then adding your undrafted free agents, like it almost like he said, like, we're kind of stacked right now with roster spots being full. Like
they have 74, I want to say, Tay. Yeah. You get the 93-man roster, which is still 19 guys, and they only have 8 picks, Tay. So it's not as if, 74 plus 8 is what, Tay? 82. We know they do also value undrafted free agents.
Yes.
And they're going to have their list, and many of the good undrafted free agents do end up in Green Bay because a lot of those guys know, guess what? 1 or 2 every year make the roster in one Green Bay, Wisconsin.
So I thought that was telling, I guess, to say, like, he thinks a lot of the guys in the roster are here. A lot of the bodies are here, right? And like it's like this is what we're dealing with. Can you make a trade or a move for one guy that's not going to affect that like overall number? Sure, but it's interesting to me that he admitted that and said that, and maybe that's the case every year. He just didn't say it those times. But
yeah, I mean, come on, it's 19 guys, Tay. That's 8 draft picks and 11 undrafted free agents. They're still in plenty good shape, and I'm sure on the bottom half of that roster, your guys definitely 70 to 74 are easily moved out for somebody you think is better if you want to get a little bit more crazy with regard to adding an extra pick or adding some additional undrafted free agents. So.
Ren, from your perspective, anything stand out with Brian? Anything else on that front?
Well, I mean, I think the big one that everybody would point to would be, he was asked about Jonathan Hargrave. Can he do that? Can he play the true nose? And quote unquote, probably more appetite for a pure nose because some of the snaps we're going to have to have play that way. So, I mean, that's kind of, guy likes to keep his cards close to the vest. He's saying they want and need in this defense a true nose. Not to say, the Jonathan Fords of the world, the Big Sleepy, the Nazir Stackhouse, and some of those other guys they have there can't do that. But he's also saying we'd like to definitely add, a nose wherever they do, but a true nose in the interior of that defense so that Hargrave can do what he does best, and that's play, on the outside of that 3-4.
Yeah. I just don't think they have all of the defensive line that they really want and need to have to work with. And we'll get into it in a little bit about, what they do in the draft for those positions a little bit, but I don't know. It's just, they just seem to have too many needs on defense, and there are some question marks on whether the guys we have are those guys still like that can come through. And I think a lot of that points to edge as well, outside of Micah Parsons. But
they really haven't though over a lot of drafts today gone skill position offense early at all. They've mostly spent most of their capital, as we know, on defensive players. Yeah. Sure, you sprinkle in an O lineman here and obviously a wide receiver last year and some other guys in the second round as well, but they generally have been taking deep defenders pretty high the last many years under Brian. Unfortunately, Tay, a lot of them haven't worked out long term.
Yeah, it's actually kind of disappointing and a little disheartening that a lot of them haven't hit. And we're back to this episode here, Ren, where we're about to have the draft and we're gonna talk about who they should pick in the first round, and it's a defensive player. And
well, that's their three biggest needs. It's cornerback, it's edge, and it's interior defensive linemen. And listen, that's important, and they need to address it. Now, should they still stick with the philosophy of best player available when they pick? I think so. But, it's hard to say that best player available when they do pick at 52 or they trade up isn't still a defender based on how their board breaks down and what they've been, pinpointing with regard to guys they like.
Yeah.
They're probably mostly defenders. So
it's pretty self-evident, and this is an obvious opinion that everyone seems to probably would have, but it's not really about like picking high any of these positions, but it's picking the right person. I mean, you can hit a home run on the 7th round pick easily. We've done it before on a lot of positions. So it's like, it's these first round, second rounds that really matter to the Packers, whether they can actually, have dividends early. And history has told us that it's not really in the cards for the Packers. It
is at times, but it's not as much as it needs to be.
I mean, look at take edge for a second. Like Van Ness, Gary. I mean, Van Ness has to prove himself. To me, he's got to prove it. Like you can't just say like
he's on the track to maybe being a pretty big disappointing pick, being taken 13th overall today. No doubt about it.
And when you inadvertently use a first round pick on Micah Parsons twice, that's your first round pick. Like you finally nailed it, but you had to trade for one. So it's like, I don't know. I just maybe I'm pessimistic about the whole early round defensive player, but it hasn't worked out, and I don't know why. I hope Van Ness proves me wrong. I really do, because we need him.
Yeah, they do. And you pinpointed a position tonight where, one of his another talking points, cornerback, quote unquote, probably the group from a numbers perspective, we're going to need to add the most numbers. He says that, Tay, in that presser on Tuesday or yesterday it is. And yeah, he's not wrong, but it's not a premier position, Tay. Edge is a premier position. We know that. quarterback, obviously. But when you're talking offense and defense, those are your premier positions.
Yeah.
So to me, you're going to get into your guys. I'm interested to see what kind of homework you did and the names that obviously you bring to the table. But honestly, Tay, when we look back as Packer fans, and that's what we are, bringing you topical and relevant Packer information and our subjective opinions. My opinion, Tay, when you look back over the last 15 years, they've taken a lot of cornerbacks high and a lot of defensive backs, i.e. safeties, high, and most of them always bust or pretty underwhelming careers in Green Bay. And frankly, I told it to you a couple months ago, I have way too much PTSD with picking that position. I don't care for it. I don't think it's nearly as important as drafting an edge. And I think they'd be wrong to do so. I think they can still find quality numbers later, in the draft as opposed to at 52 or if they trade up.
What if we had Cooper DeJean here? Would you feel differently if we would have picked him?
But they didn't again, Ted.
I know.
So,
but
when does it happen? Yeah, you get what was Evan Williams taken in the 4th round? Nice hit there, but that was the 4th round, Tay. Look at Darnell Savage. Didn't hit that one. Had to go ahead and, the same year they go ahead and get Xavier McKinney? Was that the same, off season? They had to go trade for an all-pro safety. So, again, look at Kevin King. When you and I started doing this, Tay, doing a Packers-centric podcast, we had a little symbol up there. You somehow got it, over to Apple, and, we were hitting those large numbers, we were doing it for fun, and it still is fun. But, we're both talking about that Watt kid. I don't know if you heard of him. And they go Kevin King.
Yeah.
Guy's out of the league. It never really worked. Again, cornerback, I hear it in Green Bay high, and I just don't care for it.
Well, last week you asked me what position I think that the Packers need as a priority in this draft for the first round. And I answered cornerback. You answered defensive end or edge.
Edge.
Reggie, as I call them. So that's what we did. I went, did my homework and got some names to throw out to you for the cornerback position, and Ren did the DT.
Now, Tay, when you were doing your homework, let me ask.
Yeah.
Do you kind of look at how that big board stacked up in the first round? So you're not going to be giving me names. They're going to be long gone. Or do you go like, oh, guys, it should be available 2nd round talent. And you really minded your P's and Q's on this.
I did. I'm going to throw out a name that you've already mentioned on this podcast. It's saying like if he's there, you gotta do it. And like some of these are like if they fall, Ren. I mean, even for defensive edge, if they fall, it's like you can't go to bed without drafting those guys, right? Like you have to pull the trigger on them, and that's going to be the case with the cornerback. You have to do it. The Packers had a lot of top 30 visits. They had them in.
Okay, you're scrolling some top 30s. Good on you. All right.
Well, I looked at that, and I guess my takeaway from the Packers visits was that more were in the D tackle prospects for higher rated players than any other positions. You get into like the 3rd or the 2nd and 3rd tier or round guys, and then you start seeing more names with edge and in CB room. But they, if you're talking top end like first round guys, that it was mostly limited to D tackle. So I don't know if those visits give you any clarity, any direction of what the Packers are thinking. It usually doesn't, but they bring them in for a purpose. So if they did jump up into the first round, my guess would be a D tackle, honestly. And I don't know if that will happen or not, but most likely it's going to be in the 2 positions we talk about, cornerback and defensive edge. But do you want to go first, Ren, or do you want me to jump in?
I'm ready to hear some Tay's take.
I should have like a buffer or like an intro. Tay's take, Ren's rant. Yeah, I gotta get on that. So like in this cornerback class, there really isn't any definitive like number one. It's kind of a class that's a good cornerback class, but they're all serviceable, and there's not like that lucrative player or players in this draft class. So it gets a little hard to try to pinpoint like what you want. Like they don't have a high pick, right? They don't have a first round pick. So you're not talking like a Delane or McCoy, who are arguably the number one cornerback rated in the draft. So you're not getting those guys. So if you have to look further down and try to figure out who's going to be around and who's going to be a good fit for the Packers, right? And you kind of have to weed out some of the slot guys, the slot specific guys, because I don't think we need that. And there
are
those are a few of those. And
I like that you look at you, man. It's like you're learning. It's like you do a Packer podcast.
Yeah. So I'm I was picking up what everyone's putting down here. And so yeah, I would, I would personally remove like any of the shorter guys, right? Like we always heard that like 5'10" or under, they're out. Like we don't want them here. I don't want the skinny guys. I don't want the lightweight. But that's just me. Looking at our current roster with the cornerback situation, I think there's one guy on for 2027 and beyond, and that's St. Juste. I think he's the only cornerback on paper on the contract. So it's like, holy crap, we have to do something here, right? Like our CB position right now is not robust. It's, you could even say it's kind of bleak. You have a couple guys, but I mean, really, like what's going to happen here in a couple of years? So you have to draft cornerbacks this year. Like you said, Goody even said that we have to address this room. We have to grow it. We're going to have to make some picks. Yep. So the attributes I look for in cornerback for me personally are ball skills, catching and deflecting. You got to have your hands in there. Tackling, it needs to be relied on. We've had too many. And I mean, I'm looking at you, CV, right? Carrington Valentine, even.
Do you think he wants to tackle? Do you think CV wants to tackle Derrick Henry anytime soon?
No. But that has to be it. That has to be something you get out of your cornerbacks. It's just it's kind of like, it's embarrassing actually. And then finally speed. Like you have to close the gap. You have to be able to run alongside your wide receiver, especially in those deep balls. And so when you look at this class, you have a first class or a first round tier, and a lot of those guys aren't going to happen. The McCoy, you got Delane, you got Terrell, you got Hood. Those guys are gone. So you have to look into the next tier. And then we're picking later in the second round. So some of these guys are going to come off unless you jump up and get them, right? So I'm going to jump over here and put on my list.
You're trading up?
No, and you're not trading up. So if Chris Johnson falls, you got to take him. Same with Brandon. Was it Cece, right? Cece. But Cece, I will say, sounds like a Dr. Seuss poem. Cece, I would say, the dude's young. He's only 20 years old. He's basically a project cornerback. You want him if you can sit on him for a year or two, develop him. But he's got a lot of work to do, a lot of talent though. He's a project corner over time, and he'll be that all pro someday. But so is that a Packers fit? Not really. But if he's there at 52, you got to think about it because of his raw talent. He's 6 foot, $190. Chris Johnson, he's versatile at all positions, even the outside. He's got good technique and coverage, and he's a good tackler. So if that dude is there, you're taking him. But realistically, those two aren't going to be there. So now you have to move into what I think is the next tier, and those are listed below. You got Will Lee III, and you have David Igbenusum, right? You got Takario Davis and Devin Moore. These are the guys I highlighted for these positions. Like there are some more out there, but to me, these are the guys that I would love to have.
Now, let me ask you this, Tay.
Yep.
I don't want to interrupt the thought process, but with regard to Will Lee, Davison, Takario Davis, and Devin Moore, would you have a second round grade on any of those guys? Or do you think maybe rounds 3, 4, some of those guys would be waiting there for you?
So you're going to get at least 2, if not 3 cornerbacks drafted by the Packers this draft. Now, there's a lot of guys, right, that you can spread out. Like this tier I'm talking about here, starting with Will Lee, is probably everyone's kind of got him late 2 into 3 for sure. So, like, yes, but we know that everyone's rankings don't matter when it comes to NFL teams and how they pick and where they pick, especially the Packers into rounds 2 and 3 run. You know they reach. So if they want a CB, these are the guys that I think they should take at this position. You know, when you're talking about other guys in the tier just above them, there's guys like Keith Abney and Traden Stukes. They're just not the right fits, but they might be there at 52. And I don't think that you would necessarily want to have them based on how they would fit in the Packers. So that's why I kind of selected these guys. Will Lee the third was the top 30 visit to the Packers. I would love it if they took him. He can play outside. He's good man to man. He can tackle. He's got good size, and I think he's like a downhill corner, right? He's not afraid. He can really get in there. Davison Igbinosun, I kind of rated him second. I think he's a good tackler. He's better at man coverage, but he can also disrupt the pass. The dude's 6'2", 189. I love all these guys here because they're tall, and I think that's very important. Devin Moore, he's at the bottom, but he's got good height, right? He's a boundary corner. He's better in man coverage, and I think he's got good ball awareness. He knows what's happening, where the ball's going to be placed, and can disrupt the pass. But my like, I don't know why I keep coming back to Takario Davis. It's probably because the dude is tall and he's got super long arms, and I don't know. I just like I love that. I wish that's kind of like my fan favorite. Like I don't know if he's the perfect fit, but I just want that guy on the team, just because I want a tall, lanky, fast cornerback that can just like disrupt and get in the way and maybe catch some interceptions. Because I think how many times did a cornerback get hit in the face or they hit in the chest or hit in the hands with the ball last year, and it just nothing happened. It was just went to the ground. And it's like these guys that I've listed here, I think can play good ball, disrupt the pass, make some tackles, and actually catch the ball and turn things around.
So you know another tall, lanky cornerback out of University of Washington, played for the Green Bay Packers. I just mentioned him a little bit earlier. Took him in the first round.
Kevin King?
Kevin King, Tay. Ding, ding, ding.
Kevin always seems small to me, but that dude was drafted for his agility. I mean, he could bounce around. He was pretty quick. But so that's what I got, Ren. I got these guys listed. Right. I love that they're all tall. You know, all these guys could probably put on a little more bulk. They're in the high 190s, right around there. Most of them are seniors, so they've had a lot of time. And you're going to see at least 2 to 3 cornerbacks taken in this draft by the Packers. And I hope at least 2 of them are these dudes here. Because yes, in this bottom 4 I have listed, you probably could go into the 3rd round. Maybe if they fall, you can go into the 4th round. But I think it's important that you kind of pick out guys you want and you want to see for the Packers. Some of these top tier guys are going to be gone, and that's fine. There's no way you're reaching for any of these cornerbacks. You're letting everything fall to you. And if a guy falls in your lap that aligns with what you want to do, perfect. And again, Gannon, we don't know his scheme. We haven't even had his press conference. We don't even know what the hell
You
is
said we
going
were going
on.
to get it.
I know. I was wrong. So it's not a halfly third year here. It's a brand new year with Gannon. We don't know the style of cornerback he wants, but basically, Ren, we just need more bodies in that cornerback room because it's going to deplete quickly if we don't replenish. And this is the year to do that. Next year, we have a ton more picks. So maybe you actually target and go after a specific guy that you really like then. But now it's just kind of like best guy available for cornerback. Let's go. That's why I picked cornerback over DE because you have some guys are more proven than others, but you need cornerbacks. And do you trust Carrington Valentine and Nixon to carry, and St. Just to carry the whole year as your starting three cornerbacks? I mean, yes, you have a little help with Bullard in the slot, but that's your starting roster.
Forget about the little stick of dynamite there, Tay, because his sophomore season last year, Tay, was chef's kiss. That was the man is coming along and playing some really good football. So I think they're okay with the bodies. You're right. They have today currently, but yeah, you're 100% right. You look in the future, and the future, Conan, is pretty bare. So yeah, they like Goody said, they have to add numbers. I like your philosophy, and can tell you kind of narrowed it down to Tay guys. Tay, the GM hat went on, and you had a process, and I enjoyed it. I like how you also said, slot guys. I'm doing some research here. I know that doesn't fit the Packer type. We know you got a lockdown guy there, already in the slot. So in Mr. Bullard, so we don't need to do that. But I like the thought process. A lot of seniors, a lot of guys had a lot of snaps at the position. Maybe sit a year or get a little bit of playing time. But that's what I don't like about it again in the second round. Tape PTSD and guys that aren't going to be like, you want a guy who's going to come in. You're going to see some snaps. You see a number of snaps in 2026 from the guy drafted. That's where the position of need and premier position I picked is they need it. And you're going to see that guy get a lot of snaps today. That's going to happen.
Do you think
against that philosophy you mentioned last week that you do want to see?
Do you think the defensive end is the easiest position in football?
The easiest?
Yes.
Hand in the dirt and go get them?
Yeah.
Not the easiest because true talent there, Tay, does have to work on their craft. They do have to, have guys are really good, do have to have either some just God-given talent, the motor Micah Parsons has, but you have to have the ability to place your hands well. You have to have the ability to dip. You have to have the explosion right out the gate. Usually, again, things like the explosion part, from the snap, from the jump, you can't teach it to a guy. Either has it or he doesn't. If he's coming out of the draft, he's going to be an NFL player. I just don't believe that he's ever going to really get it. And then generally some of these guys, as they get more time, they do, get into their bag a little bit deeper as far as, learning some additional pass rush moves, being to bend the edge, where they place their hands. Obviously, the Reggie Whites of the world are ones of one today. But, the good ones that get better, there's a lot to it, a lot more than just see quarterback, get quarterback, see ball, get ball kind of thing. It's not that easy.
So when you answered last week, defensive end edge is your top priority as Packers GM. I guess why do you say that? Why did you say that?
Well, again, you look at what left the building this year in JJ Enagbare. Obviously, they moved along from Rashawn Gary. Those are two guys that, took up a lot of snaps on your football team. And I know another guy that took up a lot of snaps on your football team isn't going to be there for the first 4 weeks of the season at minimum. And again, he could be ready to go week 3. But the reality is, like Brian talked about a few weeks back, they want to protect their asset. They're going to make sure they're just not cutting him loose, even if he maybe can play. And it wouldn't shock me if he's kind of starts talking right before the season breaks that he's feeling pretty good and he doesn't think it's a very long time. But I see that 4 weeks 100% happening. And you look at guys in the room, we're talking about Lucas Van Ness. One of the things in his presser is, kind of asked about that 5th-year option. Why hasn't it happened yet? And he's like, well, because, I don't even know if Lucas is here and we haven't talked yet. So he's very veiled on that. I told you why they should pick it up, because really, 13.5 to 15 million, whatever it's going to average end up being next year. Yeah, it's a little bit, probably too much money for a guy I want to say only has 8.5 sacks in his career in his time in Green Bay thus far. That's not enough to warrant that. But at the same time, if he has a good season, suddenly you got to pay him how much more than that because you didn't pick up the option tag after next year? That's just stupid. So, with the salary cap going up, so on and so forth, you look at, they've got Brenton Cox in the building as well. They've got a few other guys that can play here and there. They're super thin there, Tay. And again, this is probably considered the most important piece on defense. And you know what, Tay? With a really good front seven, it's not just obviously edge rushers, but a front seven in general, obviously talking about those, interior defensive linemen, et cetera, they make average cornerbacks look above average. So what your front seven can do can make your back look so much better. So yeah, I think it's much more important.
I hear you, and we've said that countless times on this podcast. Is like, man, that defensive backfield can look great at times with a good pass rush, but I don't want to rely on that. I don't want to have one injury away from having that exposed for the rest of the season. You know what I mean? So that's why I think cornerback is going to be a position of need.
How about Lucas Van Ness goes down, or no, he gets an injury in camp. He's not going to be ready till week 3. What do they have there? What do you got?
Brian will bring someone in. Don't worry.
Jadeveon Clowney's getting a call, clearly, but
yeah.
I mean, what are we doing here, Tay?
Well, at that point,
you need one of these guys coming along, and the guys available that are going to be available likely in the second round are potentially, really good fits for Green Bay. I think it's just way more important.
Yeah. No, I mean, if emergencies happen like that, then you're picking guys off the street. You're playing them until something can happen, and that's get those guys back. So you just got to do whatever you got to do. Everyone knows the situation they'd be in at that point. So
they're going to have to get a lot more creative then too with play calling and how they generate any kind of pass rush, and they're going to have to as it is.
Yeah.
So again, I feel this is a much more important position. Not to say cornerback's not important to add those numbers like Brian said, but I think the draft is deep enough in competent guys that you can develop that are not going to see a ton of playing time like we were just talking about at cornerback, and they're a little bit more ready come 2027. So I just don't put the emphasis early in the draft at corner, in my opinion.
All right, Ren. 52. It comes up on Friday evening, and you want a D tackle. Who is going to be there, and why are you picking him?
Not a D tackle, Tay, but an edge.
Whatever.
If Dominique Orange is there, maybe. If I got to go D tackle, Tay, as he's become everybody's favorite, the big citrus. But no, for me, Tay, the big reason, and when I tell you the 3 guys here in a second, I don't know if you made a little graphic with those 3 names I sent you or not. But the big thing here for me, what's that?
Oh, I got it ready.
Oh, nice. The big thing here for me is what you're going to hear from me is the 10-yard split, Tay. So 10-yard split is athlete's ability to burst, accelerate, and short area explosion. That is one of the biggest keys, going through this, hearing a lot of people talk about it. Tay Ren's draft probably brought to you by opinions of Andy Herman, Justice Mosqueda, Packers Wire, A to Z Sports, Acme Packing Company, all you guys out there, good work, all that good stuff. But for me, when I go through that, I hear different guys, I read different guys. The big thing for me that stands out when I narrowed it down to 3 guys, is the 10-yard split. That is a true measure for a guy. A guy needs to have that initial get off, that burst tag. If he's not a top tier athlete in that position, likely he's not going to be a pretty good edge rusher for very long in the NFL. It's just, he's not going to stick around. He's not going to get better. So that is going to bring us to the first, Gabe Acas, University of Illinois, 6'3", 260. You got him 6'4" there. Who knows who's measuring him at what time. He'll be 22 years old in May. He has a 9.59 relative athletic score today. So not only am I going to tell you about his 10-yard split, he's also a super athlete. And the Packers value super athletes. 41 pressures in 2025 and 44 in 2024, Tay. 12 and a half sacks in 25, 8 in 24, 1.59 10-yard split, which was in the almost 95th percentile, Tay. Dude is explosive, relentless, a little violent in his play, powerful hands. This is a guy that you can have on your team for a number of years and can contribute. So, obviously any of these guys coming out are going to be a little bit raw today, but the 3 that I pointed to are athletes. They can move. They're fast. Their get off is fast. And again, to me, the get off is important to be a successful edge rusher in the NFL. Malachi Lawrence, some guys don't like him only because they feel like he gets washed out a little too quick. But again, when we're talking about the 10-yard split, also just like Gabe Acas, 1.59 10-yard split, which was second best at the NFL Combine. 6 tackles for loss and 5 sacks in 2024, 11 tackles for loss, 7 sacks in 2025, to go along with 40 pressures. Good closing speed. So the guy, he's got that motor. He'll just keep running at you. Powerful hands. He's got a pretty good pass rush plan. He doesn't set the edge well against the run. So that's a little bit against him. And sometimes they feel like when he's going to maybe go up against, true talent in the NFL offensive lines, is that he's got to find more in his bag. He's just going to get washed out too easily. But again, talent, speed, power, that's what you're looking for. And one of the big guys talked about recently, for all those aforementioned different draft nicks out there, Dennis Sutton. People like to call him DDS, the dentist out of Penn State, to pair along with the other Penn State alum, number 1. That would be, who that guy is, who's going to be on the PUP list, our man. But another guy, 9.96 Tay, 6'6" arms. He's 6'6", I should say. He's got super long arms, 8.5 sacks in 24 and 25, 13 tackles for loss in 24, 12 tackles for loss in 2025, 7 forced fumbles in his career, 3 blocked punts, averaged 3.8 pressures per game, Tay, in 2025. Dude just loves football. The Packers heard that and are like, yeah, let's get that paired up with some Micah Parsons, 2 Penn State boys. Kind of a knock against him. He plays a little too upright, too tall. Needs to put on maybe a little bit of playing weight, 5-10 more pounds. People would probably feel better about him. But again, those long arms, plays start to finish, relentless. And he was a 1.63 10-yard split, Tay. So again, hits that, over 90th percentile and 10-yard split. All 3 of them do that. So it just tells you they're going to have the pop, right? When the ball goes, they're getting after it. And that's why any one of those 3 I would be happy with at 52.
What is the deal with, with Malachi being listed? I see a lot just as regular linebacker. Is he a true edge, or what's going on?
He's going to be edge rusher in the NFL. 100%. Yep. University of Central Florida. Yep.
Okay.
So
I just kind of saw him listed as, I don't know if it was edge specifically and only, but if he was more versatile than that.
Yeah, you know, if I have to pick two to narrow it down, I'm going with Gabe and with Deny. One of those two, I'm going to be a super happy guy today.
How many edge rushers do you think the Packers will draft this year?
2 at max, I would say.
So max. But
I would say they maybe spend 2 picks there, be it rounds 2 or 3, and then maybe rounds in 5, 6, or 7.
Okay. And I'm saying there's at least 2 cornerbacks, if not 3. And so already you're talking 5 of the 8 taken at those 2. And
I think you can mark down another 2 defensive tackles.
Yeah.
So,
and maybe a quarterback, huh?
You know, one of Goody's things was looking to always add the quarterback room. And, you know, maybe they're looking at a late round quarterback too, Tay. So that doesn't leave any Ted Hursts out there, any Mike Washingtons, the running backs, for the Packers to jump up and say, "Oop, look what we did. You guys talk defense." And no, we're flipping the script. So.
Offensive line, you know, they're good for at least one of those. So you got to have that, right? So like all of a sudden I'm thinking, okay, maybe with one of these 5th round picks they trade back and they just, you know, look at their board and try to draft some depth here at some other positions. But
which, you know, I'm not a big fan of, Tay. I don't love, you know,
he does. He loves it
back and getting more bodies. Ultimately, they don't make your football team or are gone in a year. Just, you know, get as many good quality players as you can and let it be that.
But with how we're talking, Ren, it's like, you know, over 50% of the draft picks will be on 2 positions. And okay, maybe they take 2 cornerbacks and 2 edges. So now you're talking about 50%. But that doesn't leave a lot of room. But I don't think I'd change my mind, right? Would you, like, I guess I've been talking about the cornerbacks and how that's a priority, but do you think so? Like you're taking DE first, but where are you at with the cornerback priority?
You know, what I've heard, again, listening to a lot of these guys that really like to delve in, there's good, you know, fill out your roster, decent cornerback talent. This draft, as far as depth is concerned, is good in cornerbacks all the way through round 5. So there's some good guys that can add to the room in rounds 3, 4, 5. So I think it'll ultimately maybe be 2 cornerbacks and maybe 1 edge, and then a lot of other stuff: a D tackle, a quarterback, you know, a wide receiver, a running back, potentially a tight end. So I think while we think it's going to end up being 50%, I'd be surprised ultimately if it's not maybe 3 guys at these 2 positions total.
And, you know, just
if I had to say, you had to break it down, it's 1 edge and 2 corners if it ends up being 3, Tay.
Yeah. That probably sounds more accurate. You know, Brian said in his press conference today, and I agree, like he's put together a roster so far, even without the draft, that if the season started today, like he could put out a good starting roster. And I agree with that. Like he's addressed some of the holes that were left, you know, just barely with, you know, in the off season here. But this draft is just supposed to bolster and maybe kind of lay more foundation for the future here. And that's kind of what I'm looking at this draft is this. I'm not expecting anything flashy. I'm not expecting a grand slam here where you're nailing 4 out of the 8. I'm just hoping for good guys that if they don't play this year, fine. But if they play next year, yes, you got to, like, you know, make use of that, and they have to come through going forward. So that I'm looking at core guys, looking at guys that will turn out. I mean, and that's of course self-evident. That's what they all should be at all times. But I guess I keep pointing back to this concept that I've developed in my head about a gap year. And it's just like, this whole draft thing is just shaping up to be that way. And next year, you really get a lot of picks. You can do a lot of action. You can do a lot of trades. You can pinpoint and target some guys. This year, you just need to take best player available at the best position you need and go with it and just hope it works out.
I think sticking with the philosophy of best player available is always the best thing to do. And again, that could be not a position we talked at all today.
Yep.
But if you want your bang for your buck and you want to see, like you talked about, a guy to make some impact actually in this upcoming season, a guy you take round 2, it's got to be an edge or D tackle today. You want to see him get some snaps. As far as the O-line thing, you're like, they're even good for one of those. I mean, Goody did address that on Tuesday. He said, he feels really good about the offensive line depth. And he really likes, his words, his starting 5 today. So maybe it's a gap year. Speaking of your gap year philosophy for the offensive line, being a part of the Green Bay Packers draft plans. Who knows?
Maybe just let it ride.
He also, speaking of drafts, he went on to say, and this is the consensus among the league and all these guys, that the 2027 draft is shaping up to be a really good one, with regards to talent across the board. So he's loading up to bear. He said, yeah, we have more capital next year. So if we want, we could move up here in 2026 because we do have more capital based on what we think we're getting for comp picks. But again, went on to say what 2027, could really be.
Yes or no question, but you can expand if you want to. Are we trading during the draft, and are we trading for a player, one of our players, away for something in the draft?
Well, they already did trade away a player. That'd be one Dontavian Wicks, as we know.
Yeah,
We addressed that last week today. I know. And like during the draft, Goody and his presser are excited about the opportunities some of those wide receivers are now going to get, i.e. Matthew Golden, and positives for the role being more clearly defined. But no, I do not think they'll trade a player. I think they already did that, and they're not going to do it again. And do I see trades in this draft? Yeah. Goody likes to wheel and deal. More than likely, it could be for another pick or two. So moving down.
Moving down. It's always down. I see that as a absolute possibility and most likely scenario as they trade down. But I would like to hear from Packer Universe out there, whatever platform you're listening to this on. Leave a comment below. What position do you think? Do you agree with us? Is it CB or DE or DT? You can, whatever you want. Let us know if you agree with us, and put your predictions below. We'd appreciate that. I just want to show here what platforms we're on. We're on obviously the podcast version. You can find that on any podcast app, and then you can follow us on socials. And of course, we go live every Wednesday on YouTube, X, and Twitch. And we'll be back probably Friday because they're not picking on Thursday. Hopefully, wink, wink. We'll be back on Friday with the first takeaway with the Packers' first draft pick.
And second, hopefully, third round too. So we get rounds 2 and 3. Who knows? Maybe they'll package a 4 and a 5, and we'll end up with a second and 2/3. It could get nutty Friday night, but yeah, come back, check us out Friday night for a first take. Please, please, please go ahead and hit that subscribe on YouTube. Someday we can get to that magic number there and make $1. That'd be that's our life's goal. That's all we have as a goal in life today. So until the first take on Friday night, on the pup list.